Welcome to the Riff. Today on the Riff, Jeremy and Justin sit down to talk about mentors and what personal and professional development can look like when you have a group of people that you learn from. They also talk about the CIA. It's not what you think. We hope today is helpful. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to another episode of The Riff. We are thrilled to have you, Justin.
Yeah.
We're hosting this today.
I walked in here and you were zipped up all the way.
Yeah.
And now you're zipped halfway, kind of more cash.
Yeah.
I'm talking about your jacket, if you're not watching on YouTube.
Yeah. It is. Yep, it is. It is casual, half zip.
All right.
Day here. Part of it is I'm freezing, but I'm also very aware that the last probably 4 episodes of The Riff, we've talked about how cold we are in the studio.
Yeah.
And I was going to not mention that. And so I unzipped a little to make it look like I'm not freezing, but it's actually making me more frozen.
Yeah.
So a lot of my mental energies right now
are
going to not show that because I'm a professional, Justin.
Right.
You know that.
No, I know.
It's I'm a gamer is what they call it.
I know.
So how are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for asking.
You're more than welcome.
Wow. How are you?
I'm better than I expect to be after at the time we're recording this. The Zags just had a big loss at a big game, and I'm
sorry.
I'm doing better.
Yeah.
I'm doing better. Yeah. So,
but here's the deal: they lost by a lot, right? I mean, and I don't mean to bring it up again, but they had like a lot of points.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it was a nail biter.
Is that easier or harder?
Easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. You know, so I found that I didn't even need to watch the last 9 minutes of the game. So, yeah, it was great.
Stress-free.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So it's baseball season, and hope your teams are undefeated still. So, hey, today we are going to talk about, I think, something that will help all of us in any type of influence, any type of role that we find ourselves where we feel like we have some responsibility in a relationship to help mentor, to help grow somebody. So whether it's in home with kids, whether it's in a work setting, some type of team setting. So I want to talk about this idea of mentorship or this idea of impact on somebody's life and allow our listeners to really fill in the gap of how this applies to them, whether it's a parenting situation, whether it's a work situation. So I think it's important that we maximize any opportunity to leverage relationships around us in a way that helps grow. So
I love
that's
it.
our goal. Yeah.
I love it. So I want you to walk us through maybe a couple of different stages of development or mentorship.
Yes.
What does that look like? I know that times in my life when I've looked for a mentor or for guidance, it's been different stages. So it's not a one size fits all. So I want to get some insight from you on that. So what does that look like in your life? How have you mentored others? And how have you been mentored too? Yeah,
so I think we start with the idea that everyone should have a mentor. Everybody should have a mentor. I believe mentors are the rocket.
Like a sensei?
Yes, like a sensei, like a master chef, a green thumb. Everybody should have someone who's had success in their life in areas that you want to have success. So faith, finances, business, whatever it might be. And so I think everyone needs that. They are the rocket boosters to help us get into a level we could not get to on our own or could not get to that fast on our own. That's what a mentor is. I believe they're gifts from God. So first thing, every one of us at every stage in our life should have a mentor. How do we find a mentor? One is a lot of them have written books. And what I found about their books or their podcasts or anything like that, you don't even need their permission to let them be a mentor. You could just get your hands on something that they read or that they wrote. It'd be tougher to get your hands on something they read.
I mean, you could, but you would have to have insider knowledge.
Yes,
you would have to.
So something they wrote. So like, for example, leadership, Simon Sinek is a mentor of mine. And I like to just drop that name.
And if he's listening.
Yeah, and he probably is.
Hey, Simon.
Honestly, I don't think I've ever, I know that I've never met him in person unless and honestly, who knows? Maybe I have. I just don't remember it. Could be there. John Maxwell, early on, I would read everything John Maxwell would write. Different pastors. Craig Groeschel, I've actually met in person like 10 times. And he doesn't remember me, but I've remembered all 10 times. And it's interesting.
How do you know he doesn't remember?
Because like on time 2 through 10,
Yeah.
when I was like, yo, Craigie, right? And because we had connected.
Right.
He's like, Craig Rochelle, nice to meet you. And I'm like, no, like we're tight. Like, remember like the last several times? And so after about time 5, I stopped trying to remind him that we're tight and just went with a thought that maybe in his mind we're not. But so sometimes you get a chance to meet a mentor. But bottom line is someone who's had success in the field that I want success in, whether it's marriage, whether it's parenting, whatever it might be. So we all need a mentor. So if you're there, whatever season, you might be in a new season. I mean, you might have advanced in whatever area where you feel like, man, but there's new challenges, new devils and new levels. And so what you need right now is another mentor. And so who could help you get to that next level? What are you reading? What are you intaking? So we all need a mentor. And there's no excuse not to have a mentor. I also don't think it's, I don't think that when you just walk up to someone and say, hey, I want you to mentor me. That is a lack of emotional awareness right there. That's a weird thing to say. I want you to mentor me. What I found helpful for me is when I'm naturally, or I find myself in the spot, ask a question that might be helpful, engage, read, do my homework, and then find myself open to putting myself in areas where I know they're going to be around. So if a mentor of mine is going to be speaking at something, I'm going to find myself there. If they are into something, I'm going to, how can I take what I'm doing, serve in that capacity where I can provide a little bit of win, maybe help what they're doing, and then maybe have more access to them. So I've done that in life where I've served in an area, even in a church setting, I've served in an area of ministry where I knew I'd be able to rub shoulders. And that way I felt like, okay, I'm going to do something good that'll be helpful. And we may have a relationship based on this. But I would never be like, hey, every Thursday night, can you meet me at Dairy Queen? A dilly bar on me. Right? I wouldn't do that. To meet a mentor, I'd let it more natural.
Just to let you know.
Yeah.
If you said that to me.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Like what? Like honestly, and when we might just go down. What dilly bar are you going? Are you going chocolate, butterscotch, or cherry?
Listen, I always want to go butterscotch, but I never have the guts to do it. And then I go chocolate.
Yeah.
I've never had a butterscotch one, ever.
I always say undipped, please. I just want it raw.
What?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a natural ice cream.
You are an animal.
Yeah, I don't want artificial. I'm really trying to do less artificial colors. So, yeah.
That's healthy, man.
Yeah.
That's healthy.
What were we talking about?
Mentorship.
Oh, mentorship. That's right.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So, dilly bars though, it's been a while.
I know, right?
So anyway, I think we all need a mentor. Find a mentor. And what I've also found is mentors. Like for me, there's been pastors who are mentors and are mentors, and I try and get it. But there are people right now that I have as mentors in areas outside of my lane of focus, church ministry, that their leadership can impact me. For example, Colin is a good friend who has been a consultant, big business consultant for years. And Colin will meet with me about once a month, and we walk through strategies and staffing and different challenges. In his mind, he likes to put some puzzles together. We've had on this podcast before, Jen. Jen works in sales and marketing and coaching, and she'll help like think through. Okay, how do you look at a 1-year plan of motivating your team? I've got a buddy Brent who's just different areas who said, okay, hey, their kind of strength would be on finances and thinking about opportunities. And what you do is you want to have this bullpen of people. Some of them are formal, some of them are informal, where you just say, hey, I want to grow in an area where you've had some strength. And I want to listen to what you have to say. I want to read what you read. I want to ask some questions and try and give you insight into my situation. And knowing that you can put together a puzzle pretty well. So here's my challenge.
Okay, so here's a question I've got, and this is from the viewpoint of someone getting mentored, someone learning, someone soaking it in. How do you decipher what stage you're in? Because I've been in situations to where there's a guy that lives pretty near us. He is extremely successful. I mean, just like a sharp business mind.
You're talking about me because I live near you?
No, you are one of them. You're in my bullpen. You are in my bullpen. Okay. But you're not this one. Okay.
So I was going to make that my bio.
So Jamie's like, man, you got to invite him to lunch, right? Because we talked. We'll talk. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
How you doing? Oh, yeah. How the kids? Oh, good. Yeah, he's probably, I don't know, 20 years older than me.
Okay.
He's been through a lot of stuff. Runs a really large part of a really large organization.
Okay.
Just impressive guy.
Yeah.
And he's so kind, right? So I'm like, yeah, I'll invite him to lunch. So I'm like, hey, would you ever want to go to lunch and just maybe, I don't know, I just got some questions for you. Love how your mind works. And he's like, absolutely. I'm like, great, man. And he's like, you know what? I'll take you to Millwood. We'll check this out. I'm like, where? I don't do golf courses. In my mind, I'm like, that's not, nope, I don't. So I show up and he's just on a different level. Right.
Yeah.
So it was fun to meet with him and he's so awesome, but I learned 0 things because I'm not even at like stage 4 and he was like stage 11. Right.
Okay.
So how do you get into a zone and understand like, okay, this is matching up kind of where I am and you're probably 2 or 3 steps ahead, or at least speaking in a language that's 2 or 3 steps ahead of where I am. Because again, like walking out of that lunch, like came home and Jamie was like, how was it? And I was like, I am bad at things. Like I don't do things well. It wasn't like, he said a couple of things that I think, yeah, I could implement that. I'm like, no. So how do you get in that space? How do you find those people? Is it an Angie's List thing? Like, what are you doing? Craigslist?
Ooh.
I've never tried, but I would be interested.
That might be a way to find a mentor.
I know.
It would be fun for us to post something like that in search of, right? Maybe in, missed encounters or something.
Oh,
I don't know. That would be kind of fun.
I kind of like that idea.
Yeah. So one, I think even in that kind of setting, I think it's fascinating, and I know you're poking fun at yourself on that, but I bet you did learn some. And even if I find myself.
I learned that the Caesar salad at Millwood is good.
Is it?
That's all I learned. That's
it's
the only
pepper. I bet it's the pepper. Crushed
thing
pepper.
I learned that day. And how kind he is.
I
Those
would
are the two
think
things.
even like a question like, okay, so we are light years different, but I bet there was a time where your level of responsibility matches my current or my next level of responsibility. Let me ask one question to you, and you tell me what you would say if this were you in this situation, right? And so you can do some things to pull them into, and then they might be like, "Oh my word, I can't even imagine what it's like to have that little responsibility," But they won't. They'll just be like, "Man, well, here's what I would focus on," or like, "Hey, if you were me, what are 3 books you think in the next year I could?" Those kind of things, right? And so you take advantage of them, even if they're out of the league. And I promise the fact that anytime that they get together with you, or what I try not to do is dominate, even if it's their time, just, hey, one quick question, right? But I do feel like it's probably a lot easier to have more of a symbiotic relationship when you got someone a little bit closer to your stage, right? And so, or you're saying, hey, out of relationship we're talking, and you might be pouring more into me directly, but it's kind of mutual help and mutual perspective sharing. And so I think there is a point, there is an element of like, okay, who's somebody in this next season, right? But the truth is there are some people you'd be surprised who they're looking for that person who might be light years leadership wise before they currently are, and whether it's in a marriage or parenting, that say, hey, I'm thrilled to share with you what I know. So I would say don't be intimidated by it, and just go for it, and then don't expect too much. Like I like what you said. Hey, would you go to lunch? That's a great question, right? It's an opportunity to have a natural conversation, see what comes up. And then I would let them, as the mentor, say, hey, that was really helpful, or that was fun. Let's do that again. Mm-hmm. And then what I'm going to do then is say, okay, I would love that. That was great.
Yeah.
As opposed to,
what if you don't, just hypothetical. What if like he doesn't respond with, man, we should do that again?
I think it's a great note to send. Say, hey, you know what? I was thinking again on that lunch we had. Powerful. Here's one thing that
I'm just asking for a friend.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because tell them to do that. Without any expectation.
I definitely will.
Just fishing. Just throwing something out there.
Yeah, that's easy.
So we need a mentor, but all of us have people that we're also mentors too, probably, whether it's formal or informal. Most of us, it's informal, where we have people who are looking up to us, or we have responsibility, whether at work during this shift, or whether it's at home, these kids, where my job is to help them advance in something, right? And so I think for me, one of the ways to look at it is kind of like there's the three words, and it's kind of for me to remember it without notes is CIA, right? So there's three different stages. There is the control stage, where someone's new on the team. Here's what we want you to do. Like when we hire you on the team, rarely is it like, hey, I mean, maybe you're in a spot where you're like, we don't have a clue what we're doing. We hired you. Come on, make it happen. But typically you've got a decent system. You've got decent things in place, and you're saying, here's what I want you to do. You're providing a list. Here's what I want you to do this first week. Here's what I want you to do this first month. Here's what I want you to do on Mondays. Here's what I want you to do in this first quarter, whatever it might be. You're controlling, and you're having conversations. Hey, this is what I need you to do. And you're mentoring. And the first thing you do is, this is how we do things, right? As a parent, there's a big phase where it's control. Like, is we say, hey, girls, in our setting was, this is what we do. This is what it means to be a Johnson. Okay. This is what we do in our home. This is what we say when someone gives us something. This is how we treat people when we meet them. These kind of things, right? It's control. But then you got to realize, whether it's work or family, after control, you go influence is, hey, I'd consider this. I'm gonna give some mentorship in that way. I'm not controlling. No, that's not how you send that email. It's like, hey, think about this. If our goal is this, what if you considered, boom, okay, hey, I observed this meeting, I observed this interaction. What if you change this? When you're listening to your kids at the dinner table, they're talking about school, instead of saying, I can't believe you did that. Maybe at that age, whatever that might be, you say, hey, how did that work? What do you think? Well, what if you would have said something like this? So you're going from control to influence, and then at the end is advocacy, right? And so when someone is growing and developing, and then all of a sudden now I don't have to be controlling. I don't even have to give a ton of influence. I'm like, what do you need from me? Right? If my first one-on-one from you is like, you're just brand new on the team, I'm like, all right, all I got is, you got any questions for me? That's abdication of leadership, right? And you're assuming a lot. But if I can say, here's what I need, eventually we get to the spot in a relationship where I'm like, hey, try this, tweak this, challenge this. And then eventually the goal is to be able to say, hey, you already know what we want. You already understand the principles and perspectives that I bring to the table. And you're always going to bounce back and forth in some of these. But as a general rule, now it's like, hey, how can I help you? What do you need from me? And as I'm at a spot, our kids, the two girls, that's our families, both our families. But for us, we're at the spot now where when we do our best, we're hanging on the advocacy. We're like, hey, how are things going? Tell me. We're cheering you on. What do you need from us? There's some times, even now, at 23 and 21, where we slip into some influencing, like, hey, here's a way to land that job. Here's a way to da-da-da-da-da. And we try and stay out of the control zone. So anyway, the CIA, your family and your work settings, because you manage a lot of people, you manage a lot of things here. How do those what's your take on some of that stuff?
It's hard to, I think the C and the I part is maybe not. I believe that is a very hazy space.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I think going from influence to advocacy, I think from my experience like leading people, that's been easier for me to understand the line between those. The first two are pretty tough for me because I want to get into a zone to where I do want to give you influence, right? But then I'm thinking like, I don't know if this is the time. I probably need to control this, right?
Right.
Or vice versa. I'm controlling something. I should be like, I should probably be influencing this instead. Like it's just back and forth. Same with kids. We're in a very controlling space right now, like with the age of our kiddos. Lily's getting more into influence stage, right? And I think with maybe kiddos, it's easier
And
to see.
your kids are elementary.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. 3rd and 1st grade.
Yeah.
Right. So I think with that, you see developmentally, they're developmentally happening, and it's kind of an expected, okay, this is kind of expected. With an employee or somebody that you're working with in a work situation, everybody goes at a different pace.
Right.
So like our 90-day plan for you might not work the way it did for X, Y, or Z. So
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part. So what do you do to make sure that you're differentiating those lines? And what are your kind of some of maybe indicators that they're ready to jump into a space where you're ready to influence, or they're jumping into a space you're ready to advocate? Like what are some of those spaces when you're talking like in the workplace that you don't have well, they're in 3rd grade, now they're in 7th grade.
Right. Right.
What do you do? What do you do in those spaces?
One, we all of us listening in a work environment, we probably are on both sides of this table. All of us have people who have responsibility over us. Even if you're self-employed, it probably fits at some level. And then all of us have people that we have responsibility over. So I think you start every relationship, every new relationship at work, with control. Right. And not that I know that doesn't market well, but you have to have it say, hey, here's what our business is about. Here's what our company is about. Here's what our church is about. Here's what it means in our setting could be. Here's what it means to have a lobby ready to roll for a weekend. And on your first week, I don't need you to come up with a different strategy, but you being able to implement, this is what is currently expected, now gives you a ton of weight to even challenge the current system. Mm-hmm. The last thing, we talk about this on our team a lot, last thing I want is someone to challenge our system if they first don't know the system. Right. So the first thing, the portal to being able to challenge any system at work is to be able to know and implement the current system, right? Then now I'm intrigued. If I know that you don't have a different idea because you don't understand our idea or you're not good at our idea, then I'm not interested in your idea. And maybe that's a flaw. But when I know, you know this thing well, you know what I'm talking about. But not only do you know what I'm talking about, you've got an idea and a curiosity about how it can maybe even be better. And here's why that's important for me. When I know you understand the purpose and how to deliver the purpose, but you so understand the purpose, you've got an idea of how to better get there. Oh man, now I'm curious. So that's why I feel like as if I'm trying to influence or mentor or be responsible for a team or people is start with control. The moment they can deliver that and you give them clarity, you give them scoreboards, you give them, and when they do that well, when they're high performing in that might be 90 days, that might be 9 months, right. That might be 9 weeks, right? But the moment that they're able to have competency in the areas you've given them clarity. Then all of a sudden now, once you're competent, now I'm going to shift towards more influence. And now if it slips, your competency slips because I'm not giving you the score, then I just got to back that up and say, okay, I give more clarity and more expectations or control for those who are underperforming. And so the more you perform and you're able to hit that, now I can shift to influence because I know you know how to hit that. Now let's talk about different approaches to it because you're going to deliver, but let's talk about how you're delivering it, right? And if that goes well, eventually. So what I'm trying to do now is just because you're good at this and you're competent, I don't now stop saying, okay, cool. Now I abdicate this area because you're making it happen. I want to share with you the whys. I want to give you perspective. Let's talk about why it's going well. Let's do film study on this area. Mm-hmm. And now when you understand my heart, my perspective, now I'm like, advocacy. Like in our situation, I think you've been in this role like 6 years or something. Mm-hmm. And we've worked together for, since I've been here, so over 10 years, but 6 years working in an office probably, I think all that time, which love it. We're like roommates.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
It's adorable.
Yeah. So in my role, we have scoreboards just because everybody has scoreboards. But in my mind, I feel like I'm doing a lot of advocacy with you because we've worked so much, we've worked a ton. And there were seasons where it's like, hey, Justin, here's why I believe this. And the whole conversation is here's my thought, here's my thought, here's my thought, here's my thought, right? And then it was more like, hey, here's your thought. Well, let's wrestle with this. We have influence. We're at a spot now where in most of our settings, settings, because we've been doing these things a lot, it's advocacy. But if we have a new initiative that I'm passionate about, then I'm going to lean into this in that area. Or if there's an area that we feel is underperforming, I'm going to say, hey, I want to come in this area, and I want to bring some control to this.
Okay, I think that's the trickiest part for me. Okay. When I'm leading anything is when I think that we've passed the control.
Yes.
And I've gotten into the influence space.
Yes.
Well, then I got to go back.
Yeah.
What's the most grace-filled, like, kind way to do that still provides clarity of what you're trying to do?
Yes.
Because the person on the other end, at least when I've done it, has felt kind of shocked or like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, you're micromanaging this. I'm like, no, I got to.
Yes.
So what does that look like for you?
Well, I feel like it is the CIA, control, influence, advocacy, is not something that now we hit this, we never go back to this. It's not like, okay, but most of our relationship is going to be this, right? Let's start with parenting, because it's probably easier for parents to relate, is you can be living in the season of adequacy, right? Or advocacy or adequacy.
Either one.
You're adequate with your advocacy. And let's say right now, so my girls are gainfully employed, okay? Which that's a new season for us.
Congratulations. That's great.
It's like a pay raise.
That's good.
Right? And so let's say on the first of the month, though, I'm a co-signer on this apartment, okay? If the first of the month they don't pay their lease, we're going to have a quick control conversation.
Right.
It's not going to be like, hey, how's that going, right? I'm going to be like, hey, the first of the month, what do you need from me? Because that's got to happen. Now, that doesn't mean now our relationship is back to, you don't trust me anymore. I'm like, no, I just want you to pay for what you're supposed to pay for, right? Like, so I'm not going to let them take that one element of control and say you're being control freak. I say, let's have a conversation about it. I'm just saying, hey, in this area, we need to bring this area back to this if we don't have that, right? So parenting, it makes sense. I'm never going to not do this. At the same time, I got to be aware, maybe I'm being too controlling, right? Because I was used to that. So, and if there's not a reason to be controlling, so that's a conversation. Work is the same way. Work might be, in our setting, it could be this. Hey, let's pick an area in our organization. For example, just recently we picked a spiritual formation that we would feel like most people would say, us included, that this is an area that was a weak link in our church for several years. A lot of meat left on the bone. And so we fundamentally said, let's attack this area. We believe we want to be a life-giving, following Jesus type of resource at North Point. And so I went into high control mode. And not because I don't believe you're a good leader. And as a matter of fact, you had never oversaw it until we started this. So we launched this initiative. How do we launch, JXP came out of that, but how do we focus spiritual formation where that's a strength of ours in 2023? And so I went into hyper control mode. And then all of a sudden now, I've let off the gas a little on it because you've developed team, you and Preston work very closely together with the campuses. And now it's more about, okay, hey, I want to have influence. What's next? But I'm thinking, okay, what's another area of our deal where for this season, I'm going to go hyper. So it's not weird. And if you would say, Jeremy, don't you trust me? And if we had that conversation, I'd be like, this isn't personal, right? Like this is an area that we need to grow in. And anytime we need growth, there's going to be a moment of control, then influence, and then advocacy.
I think that's, we talked about Ramsey on here, right? Before he listens, Dave Ramsey. He listens. I think he listens.
Oh, I thought you meant the home builder.
Either one. I bet they're both listening.
They're both listening, yeah.
But he has something, and he talks about, I mean, very similar to what you're saying, to where it is, like his job as CEO, right? Like your seat that you're sitting in is to work on new things and broken things.
Okay, yeah.
Like if he's starting to work in the middle, that's when it gets like weird, right? You've done a great job of that. And that's why I've never felt like, whoa, what are you doing? I hope you control the new thing. I want to know what you want. Yeah. And if it's broken, I need your help. Like, so those are the moments where for me, at least, I'm like, I got to have open hands on both of those and be like, this is not personal. Let's get it done. Yeah. Like, let's go. So I think that's super helpful.
Now, let me say this though. Let's say you're leading someone on your team who it's not a new initiative and it's not something that you're like, okay, hey, we've allowed this to be broken for a while, but let's say it's an area of ministry or area of your organization where you just had influence in because they've been doing a good job, but right now you're seeing a lot of things missed. Then what you have to do is you have to go back into control, and that's going to be tense because you're going to be like, this isn't a new thing. It's just new that now you're micromanaging me in this area.
Right.
And I wanted to say, everyone who's managing someone, that's all right. Well, as a matter of fact, that's your job. And and the key there is to say, hey, I don't know why, when I let off the gas in this area for this, we're just not getting the right results. And so then let's go back to control. And so if that happened to me, and so for example, the board comes to me and says, hey, Jeremy, we need to really, because they help set and approve the budget for the year. And if they had to come in July and be like, hey, Jeremy, we're going to meet with you every Tuesday morning at 7:30 to review the budget, I'd be like, okay, like, is there a reason? And if they're like, yeah, because you haven't hit it for 6 years in a row, then I'd be like, that makes sense. And I can't be like, well, you guys just don't give me autonomy. Okay. I'd be like, yeah, thanks for your grace. And now your control in this area is your grace to allow me to learn something, right? No, that's not based on a true story. Okay. But I would expect them to, right? If you just abdicate the relationship, then when the results aren't there, that's when you don't go back into control. And there will be times where you're like, hey, maybe for whatever reason, I got overwhelmed. I got too many things going on my plate, and someone needs to slide in here with control. That should be as someone who's working, my cue to say, hey, I really need to tighten this up here. Or I need to have the conversation of, hey, I've got a lot going on here. What are these things that how can you help me? And so, but here's the other thing with parenting too, if we don't have those conversations about how it's going, in a work relationship or even a kid relationship, they can overpromise. I'm going to change. I'm going to do better. And promising is not a good foundation for growth. And pressure isn't either. And I can do that as a parent. Knock it off, stop, change right now, right? Or as a boss, well, you missed the deadline, blah, 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 right? And so pressure from the mentor or promises from the mentee, they're tiring. What you need is the conversations, the perspective, and then develop a plan of preparation, right? So when we can talk together and say, hey, this isn't being delivered, or hey, you're coming across really, weird. What is it you want me to deliver? How do you want me to deliver this? What is in your gut? How do I help make that happen, right? From as a kid, as a parent. So anytime you're over pressuring or over promising, it just means there needs to be a conversation.
That's great.
So,
I don't want to be that person that controls.
No.
But we're out of time. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to control it. Honestly, let's go influence.
Can we talk about that?
No, I'm going to ask a question. Maybe like influence. I'm like, hey, we're over time. How does that make you feel? Right?
Okay,
maybe.
Can I at least ask that you would allow me one more question?
Yeah,
to our
absolutely,
listeners?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
If someone's out there with a membership to Millwood, and you invited Justin to a Caesar salad. And then I know you're light years ahead of him, but just throw out a couple things that might help. I think that would be a win. Consider it.
Listen, man, I just froze up, man. I just sat there and ate my salad, and I'm like, tell me about your life, man. Like after he said like 2 or 3 things, I'm like, oh, geez, I have nothing to offer you, and you are eons ahead of me.
Well, hey.
Thanks for the salad. See ya when I get back home. It was a great salad, man.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Thanks for this talk. This was good. This was helpful.
This was good.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Riff listeners, have a great week, and we'll come back at you with another episode next Monday.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.